Good morning, everyone, and you're all very welcome to our session this morning. My name is Geraldine O'Reilly, and I work at Clio as a Community and Events Manager, and I'm delighted to be bringing you today's session. This, can you believe, is our 8th in the series, the Making of a Law Firm series. I can't believe we've already got to number 8. The year has just been flying by. So starting a law firm is tough, and building your firm can be even tougher. So we decided to support the community via a monthly online event series that will run throughout 2021 and follow 4 law firm leaders who are all on the road to building new and successful UK law firms. Today, we will be discussing marketing and personal branding for lawyers. And today and throughout this year, it will be appreciated if you could share your support for the series and for our leaders on social media using the hashtag #MakingALawFirm. Our leaders kindly are taking time out of running busy startups to share their experiences with the community. So they deserve a thank you here and there along the way. So please do share and post about us on social media. So this morning we are joined by 3 of our 4 leaders from the series. So we've got Alistair Wells, founder and director of Tend Legal. Alistair is an experienced solicitor. He co-founded Tend Legal with his wife Shona in 2020 with the aim of finding a better way to deliver amazing legal services to startups and SMEs. Alistair is known for his approachable manner, zen-like calm, and clear commercial legal advice. We've also got Elena Manukian, partner at the Injury Solicitor. In 2020, after seeing that legal services could be delivered from almost anywhere, Elena decided to launch her very own firm. Specializing in personal injury law and being a small firm, Elena is able to offer clients a personalized service, which you simply don't get from larger law firms in the UK. We've also got Natalie joining us as well. So Natalie Foster is founder of Foster Clay Law, and Natalie co-founded Foster Clay Law in 2020, just over a year old now. And the vision for Foster Clay Law was to have a friendly, forward-thinking law firm that provides excellent professional service to individuals and businesses, both locally and nationally. Natalie saw a gap in the market for a firm offering digital legal services. And we also have a very special guest joining us today and subject matter expert, Amelia Surdell, founder of another COVID business, Clout, the personal branding agency. So Amelia began her career in marketing as a recruitment marketing specialist, where she quickly discovered the reach and the power that an individual personal brand can have on an overall company and employer brand. Since launching Clout, Amelia has worked with tech startup founders to FTSE leadership teams on building personal brands that deliver actual results. With a strong following on LinkedIn, Amelia successfully took Clout from launch to oversubscribed in just 4 weeks, all on the back of her own personal brand. So we're delighted to have her join us today. So to our topic of discussion this morning, marketing and personal branding for lawyers. In an increasing digital world, personal branding is one of the most important but often overlooked areas, and things that reputation conscious lawyers and firms can do to market themselves. But what exactly is a personal brand, and what does it have to do with marketing? And Amelia is going to cover that in the next few slides. Thank you, Amelia.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. And I've just seen glaringly obvious spelling mistakes in this screen that you've just shared with me. So here we go. Hopefully it's all uphill from here. So thank you so much for having me. Yes, I run a business called Clout, which is a personal branding agency. And as Geraldine very kindly mentioned when she was introducing everyone, I learned about personal branding through my personal experience as a marketeer. So context, I used to work for a recruitment agency, which you may not think is similar to a law firm, but we operate in a very similar way. We're selling a service. We are selling our people as opposed to a product. And I learned very quickly that it was much easier for the team that I was working with to infiltrate the customers that they were trying to reach from within their own profiles, from within their own presence online, than it was for a company to try and mass market to these people. So that's what brought me to kind of discover personal branding and took me on this journey to a point where I now run an agency where we look after FTSE 500 leadership teams. So we look after the Sky Bet leadership team. We're working with the Flutter Group, Cummins, which is a huge provider of energy across the world, down to startups, fintechs, service-based businesses to help them basically build really strong company brands off the back of their personal brand. The next slide, please, Geraldine, my lovely assistant for today. So why are we here? So just to lay the baseline of like why personal branding is so powerful for you guys individually. Fact is, individuals have 10 times the reach of a company brand online. So every single person who is sitting in this chat, 115 of you live today, each one of you have 10 times the reach as an individual than your company brand does online. So not leveraging that kind of reach is just a completely wasted opportunity. So why is personal branding so important? Well, obviously it wins attention, but more importantly, trust. And I'll take you into what that looks like in just a second. And off the back of building that trust, it obviously builds authority because you're positioning yourself as the expert in your space by pushing out content on your own platform. And finally, what we're all here for probably, which is driving inbound leads. It allows you to increase your fees and obviously grow your business. So for context, we have been going for 12 months. I've built the business completely off my personal brand and off my team's personal brand. And we don't spend a penny on marketing. We don't spend a penny on paid ads. We don't spend a penny on SEO. None of that. 100% of our business comes through Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, through to our DMs and say, hey, we've been watching you for 6 months and you're the person for us. And so closing those deals then becomes a piece of cake because they've already bought into who I am and who the team is, and they're not even considering any other options. And finally, as I said, positions you guys as the lawyer of choice. There are many, many law firms for your customers to choose from, regardless of what niche you're in. So when you've built your personal brand around being the lawyer in your space or the solicitor in your space, you're not just an option amongst many, you become the option. So that's why personal branding is so powerful. Next slide, please, Geraldine. So as I was saying a minute ago, it builds trust. So what does that look like practically? Well, this pie graph is a pretty much representative of every single industry in the world. At any given time, you have 85% of your target audience are not interested in speaking to you. They're not buying. They don't want to hear from you. They don't want to see you. They have no interest in speaking to a lawyer, solicitor, etc., regardless of what their circumstances are. 12% of your customers or 12% of your target audience at any given time are considering working with someone like you. They might have a problem. Maybe they've just launched their business and they need some commercial advice, but they're not quite sure who they're going to go for yet. So 12% of your customer demographic are thinking about working with a company like yours. And finally, at any given time, only 3% of your target audience are actually looking to buy. They're actually looking to find someone to work with, pay them a fee, and get the job done. And the trouble is with traditional marketing methods is everyone targets that 3%. No one looks at the 85% because they're not interested yet. So of course, we're not going to bother spending any money or spending any time on them. But this is a completely flawed way of doing things because this is essentially a funnel. If anyone knows what a marketing funnel is, it's basically an upside down triangle where you have to put lots of stuff in the top, lots of eyeballs, lots of attention in the top to get a few leads and a few conversions at the bottom. But what this pie graph is representing is exactly that. The 85% of people that you will start interacting with by building your personal brand will start to trust you. And so they move further down the funnel. So when they get to the consideration stage, they don't even go to anyone else. You're the first person that they come to. And I'm sure Alistair and Elena can testify that the stuff that they're putting out on LinkedIn specifically is starting to generate interest, starting to generate leads, and starting to position themselves as the lawyer of choice because people have been following them when they've not been interested in their services. Next slide, please. So why LinkedIn? So LinkedIn is, I'm not saying that everyone on this call should be on LinkedIn. You need to figure out first and foremost where your audience are. There is no point in building a personal brand on Instagram if your company is, your audience is not on Instagram. There's no point in building a personal brand on LinkedIn if your audience is not on LinkedIn. But if you're in business law, you're selling to businesses, LinkedIn is probably a good place to start. If you're selling to business people, it's also a good place to start. But get really clear on what channels you need to be on first. But specifically, why LinkedIn is so powerful is it's the best social network aside from TikTok for organic reach. So if you consider, say, a Facebook has 0.6% organic reach. So that means when you post something, only 0.6% of the people in your network are going to see that piece of content. So that's not a great ROI. When you look at LinkedIn, you can reach over 100 times the people that are following you on a single piece of content. So for example, I shared something last Monday that went sort of blew up, what we call viral. I only have 65,000 followers or so. It was seen by 1.2 million people. So that goes to show the power of organic reach. It means if you're not paid for anything, all you've done is just pushed your content out there and people have engaged with it, which leads me on to it's free marketing. You are not, it's probably really worth noting at this point that LinkedIn values members' content. So everyone on this platform, if you're on LinkedIn, it values your content above company updates and paid ads. So what that means, if you're spending all your money on paid ads and all your time on your company page, you're basically chucking money down a well, because people are less likely to see that content than if you were sharing the exact same thing on your personal page. So free marketing from your personal profile. And to the final points here of why LinkedIn's so powerful is there are 9 billion content impressions made every single week on LinkedIn. So impressions, just to get out of my marketing jargon, impressions are views. So there's been 9 billion content views every single week on LinkedIn, but only made by 3 million users, which basically means that there are only 3 million people out of a 500 million people on LinkedIn actually sharing content. 99% of people don't share content on LinkedIn. And there is a huge supply and demand problem on LinkedIn currently. I'm sure, hands up, any of the panelists have seen this. You will see posts come up in your feed from 4 weeks ago, from 7 days ago, because there is a supply and demand problem. The more people can get content out today, are the more people that are going to be able to get the advantages in 6 months' time, because currently LinkedIn does not have enough content to feed the demand that it currently has. And it's probably worth noting from a B2B perspective, LinkedIn's the highest converting social media channel out of all the other social media platforms combined. So if you're in the B2B space, LinkedIn is where you should be. Next slide, please. So 4 steps to building to build personal branding as a strategy. And if you have teams, get your team to build your company brand for you. Next slide, please. So this is basically the strategy that we use internally, and it's how we build our client strategies out. So number 1, you guys have to get super, super clear on what you want to be known for as a business. What is the super source? What is the niche that you guys want people to think of you when they come across your content, they come across your company, they come across you as an individual? What does that look like? So for me, for context, I want to be known as a personal branding expert. I want to be known as someone who champions startups and scale-ups. And I want to be known as someone who is a leader in a disruptive industry. So those are the 3 things that I want to be known for. And why this is really important is you need to be famous for something. You can't just post willy-nilly all these different types of topics and expect to build influence around any single specific thing. When you get super clear on what you want to be known for and you talk about those things consistently, and I literally mean say the same thing over and over and over and over again, and maybe in a slightly different way, that's where you start to build the influence, and that's where you start to build the authority as the person in your space. Next slide. So the next thing, after you've got your foundations right, like what do you want to be known for? The next thing you need to have a look at is, what are your brand values? What are your personal values? How do you want people to feel? Do you want them to feel like you're friendly and approachable, or do you want them to feel like you're very professional and respectful? How do you want people to feel when they come across your content? And why this is really important is this will help form your tone of voice. This will help form your kind of the mirror that you want to put up in front of your customers, so they feel like when they're speaking to you as a business, or at least they feel like they're speaking to you as a business when they come across your content online, that you are someone that is relatable to them. So for example, if you're targeting the financial industry, you would not want to speak like me, because I am very colloquial. I swear sometimes on LinkedIn. I use lots of emojis, and that might not be appropriate for that particular customer demographic. However, if I'm working with like fintechs, which is obviously part of the same bracket, but a slightly different subsect, I maybe want to use lots of emojis, be a little bit more candid, a little bit more colloquial, have a bit of a banter, because it's a much more sexy, younger, fluid product. So get really clear on what your brand values are and how you want people to feel when they come across your content. Next slide, please. And then the 3rd piece of the puzzle, and this is where we get into the outward facing stuff. So we've done the inward facing stuff of building up that foundation. The 3rd thing that you do is you start curating and creating content. Now, normally when people hear the words creating content, their whole brain just shuts down, because they're like, oh my God, that's going to be more work than I've currently got time to do, etc. You do not need to create original content to be highly valuable on LinkedIn. You can curate stuff. You can go and find stuff that's interesting to your customer. You can go and leverage things from other sources and say, hey, did you see this thing? This might be really interesting for you. So don't freak out when you hear the word content, because you don't have to create things in Adobe Photoshop or be really intelligent online to really build influence. You just simply have to be the place where people come to find that information. So that could be simply, you'd find out about a new legislation that's coming in and you're not really sure how to communicate that properly. So you go online, you find the article that discusses the particular piece of legislation that's coming in, and you share that article as a screenshot on LinkedIn and just break down what are the top things that your ideal customer needs to know about. So you've not really created anything original there. You're just regurgitating what's already out in the internet, but you're positioning yourself as someone who knows what they're doing. Next slide, please. And then the final piece of this puzzle is the distribution. So once you've got your foundations of what you want to be known for, how do you want people to feel, what are you curating and creating that's going to be valuable for your customer? So what you want to be known for should be the cornerstones of that. Get loads of content around, business, law, etc., or whatever. Get really clear on what you want to be known for. Make sure you've got lots of content in those brackets. Then you get onto distribution. Now, distribution should be daily. And I know that's going to freak a lot of you out, but there's a very simple way of doing that. And that just means you schedule time in your diary from 9 to 9:05. You post your content, you go back to a few comments, and then you crack on with the rest of your day. If you guys want to build an inbound strategy where people are coming to you, this is how you do it. If you want to pay an agency to kind of smash phones and get sales straight away, that's another way of doing it, but it's not a sustainable way of doing it. So I will warn everyone ahead of time, this is a long-term strategy. It will take you 3 to 6 months to see any kind of results from building your personal brand. But if you're doing it consistently, then it will eventually pay off. Next slide, please. So how does this look practically? So obviously I've just mentioned there how you can go and curate information from other platforms. So if you do the next slide, I can show you how this works. So Stevenson Law, which I'm sure many of you know who Alice Stevenson is, they have a fantastic website with lots and lots of information, loads of blogs. They've clearly paid their marketing team or an outside person to write, and they're very well written. And Alice obviously is hugely prolific on LinkedIn. But a lot of what she talks about comes from her person, which isn't scalable, right? You can't take the founder's thoughts and feelings and get everyone to share that information because they're not the founder. But what you can do is regurgitate all the information, all the insights and all the blogs that you currently have existing on your website, or even on other websites too, and turn them into content. So this particular blog, this particular post I've just written has come from, is on the Stevenson Law website. You can go and check it out. And I think it was titled something along the lines of, what are employee employment statuses and like, why do they matter? So this was a really long article. This was like a 3 or 4 minute read, which obviously we can't share on LinkedIn because we're limited by characters. So what I did is I went into that article and I copied and pasted the most important thing from that article. And then I finalized it with, was this helpful? And I'm sharing it with the cheat sheet that came in that particular blog. And that's it. Pulling this together took a copy and paste 3 seconds to pull together. So if you're sitting on blogs and insights that are already on your website, you can be building your personal brand from today simply by using the stuff that you've already got. So this is a really fantastic way to leverage content that's already in your toolkit. And if anyone wants the link to this article so they can see practically the two side by side, let me know in the chat and I'll pop the link in there once I've finished. Next slide, please. So what does the personal branding journey look like? So Alistair and Eleanor, I'm sure you can relate to this, but this is so accurate. Like I can't even tell you. You will start off, you'll be really pumped after this session today being like, oh, I've seen these amazing results from these other law firms. Like I'm going to do this. And you're going to go, right, this is amazing. And then in a week's time, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, this is so hard. And then finally you'll get like a couple of posts that will get 100 reactions and you'll feel like, oh my goodness, I'm building momentum. And then you'll have another post that gets 2 reactions and you'll feel like, what the hell am I doing? And this is literally what personal branding is like. It's like investing in the stock market, a little bit of money every single day. Maybe in a week's time, it's worth negative what you put in. But in a year's time, you're going to have so much more money, so much more influence, so much more brand equity in yourself because of compounding impact, because of compounding interest. You pay into your personal brand every single day. And in a year's time, that personal brand is going to be very, very valuable. And I promise you that will set you up probably for the rest of your career and the rest of your business. Next slide, please. So who does this well? Obviously, I've mentioned Alice already, but this goes to show you side by side the impact a personal brand can have versus a company brand. So Alice has over 32,000 followers. She's very influential in your space and has almost 100% inbound strategy as a result. But when you compare that to Stevenson Law, they only have 5,500 followers. So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea about the disparity between the two. And for context, I've got 65,000 followers on LinkedIn and I've only got 8,000 followers on my company profile. And yet we're 100% inbound business. Next slide, please. So here are some tips just to round this off, some key takeaways for you all. And if anyone wants a copy, we have this free playbook on LinkedIn. So if anyone thinks that LinkedIn's their platform, I do a free playbook. It just gives you kind of the top to tail how to build your personal brand on LinkedIn. Let me know in the chat and I'll pop the link in there. It's just a PDF. It's very simple, but it kind of breaks down the strategies you can use to build your personal brand on LinkedIn. So here are some bonus tips about how you can practically start building your personal brand. So number one, anytime you have a thought or you have a discussion with a client and you've given some advice to a client and they think it's really interesting or really useful, jot that, note that, dictate that into the note section of your phone. Now, there's two reasons why this is important. Number one, who the hell has time to sit there and type out all their thoughts and feelings into the note section of the phone? I definitely don't. I know we're all very busy. We're all running businesses, chasing off the children, etc. However, the second part of this piece, when you write content, something weird happens in our brain where we go from being very colloquial and very engaging to, this is a very interesting idea I wanted to share. And nobody finds that interesting because when we read copy, we read it as if someone was saying it to us. So if you said to people in the way I just said there, people would turn off, they would switch off because it's not interesting. When you dictate what you want to say in a piece of content into the note section of your phone, it writes how you speak. And that is how you build influence with people. That's how you sell to people. That's how you get people on your side, because it comes across as authentic, it comes across as real, and it comes across as not kind of marketing approved. The second thing is bank ideas. So I have thousands and thousands and thousands of ideas in the notes section of my phone that I've just dictated in. Every time I get one, like after this session, I've already had an idea while we've been speaking about how potentially I could help people and maybe turn this into a piece of content. So as soon as I jump off there, I'm going to be dictating into my phone, I've thought about this, da, 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 da. So then you have hundreds and hundreds or tens of ideas, of screenshots, of notes for those uninspired days, which you will inevitably have. I run a personal branding agency and there are days that I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to say today. I'm tired. My kids kept me up until 2 o'clock in the morning. This is the last thing I want to be doing, but I know I've got backup. I've got a plan B because there are so many ideas already on my phone. The third thing is see what is trending on other platforms. So what has gone viral on Twitter that's talking about the subject matter that you're an expert in? Go and screenshot some of those tweets using dark mode and share them on your own LinkedIn. Don't be afraid of repurposing content from other platforms, provided that you cite the source, right? Please follow, I got this from here, follow them there. Same with articles. If you come across an article in your morning coffee that's really interesting, screenshot it using your phone, share it on LinkedIn and say, hey, this is really interesting because of XYZ. What do you think? Finally, if you're going to do video, keep it under 3 minutes and try and subtitle them if you can. There's some great apps you can use to do this. Veemly is my favorite. It's really, really cheap. It means you can turn stuff around very, very quickly. You can do everything you need to do for an amazing piece of social video content in one app, just on your phone. Very, very simple. And finally, keep a consistent schedule time into your diary to post. As I said, it could be as simple as schedule it in for 9 a.m. and by 9:05 you're done and you can crack on with the rest of your day. 5 minutes a day is all it needs to build a bit of influence. And I'm pretty sure if any of you are spending any money on marketing, you can afford to spend 5 minutes a day doing this. And finally, it doesn't need to be clever to be valuable, right? I shared something a few weeks ago about my daughter's first day at school. And you would think that is just not valuable at all. Why is this here? This isn't Facebook. But actually, it's that little personal story that makes people really buy into who I am. It gives them a peek behind the window about who Amelia is and what Amelia's life is like behind the LinkedIn screen. And that's what people love. When it comes to personal branding, people overcomplicate the branding piece and don't focus enough on the personal piece. There is a reason why humans connect with humans, and it's because we are human. So don't be afraid of being personal, of being authentic, of being your absolute self on LinkedIn, because it's going to have the opposite effect that you think it's going to have. Instead of repelling people, it's going to attract people. And that's how you'll build influence and ultimately inbound leads. Next slide, please. And finally, this is my favorite saying, and it's also one of our core values at Clout: done is always better than perfect. I would rather you guys posted B grade plus content every single day than A grade plus content once a week. Because it's not that A grade plus piece of content that actually builds your personal brand. It's the consistent showing up and giving little tidbits of value, starting conversations. Going back to what I was saying earlier, only 99% of people on LinkedIn share content. Don't be one of those people. Next slide, please. Do you want to do questions now, Geraldine, or do you want to wait until later?
We could cover, there's a couple of specific questions actually just came in that I might just pop to you. So there was a question on what is the name of the video app you mentioned?
Veemly. So I'll type it into the chat so you can all see. But Veemly, it's absolutely fantastic. We used it up and until I hired a videographer. I used to do all of our client video in that app. So that just goes to show you the quality of it. And you can knock out a video from record to production to subtitling, etc., probably within 20 minutes. So if you did that once a week, it's a great piece of middle funnel content.
Brilliant. Yeah, there was a few people asking for that. Lots of people asking for the link as well to the guide that you mentioned you share. So whenever you have a chance, and we can pop it into the follow-up email as well after the event. There's another question here on what do you mean by curating content? So if you could explain that or define it, I guess.
So there's two types of content you can share, basically. Created, which is that you've created it, you've written it, it's your kind of quote unquote original thoughts, although I don't really believe anyone's thoughts are original, but you've made it, it's your thing. And then there's curated, which is you found it somewhere else and you wanted to share that idea with people. So for example, there's something might be something that's trending on LinkedIn news, which is a really great place to find content ideas, guys, because if you can talk about the trending stuff on LinkedIn, you've got a much more higher chance of going viral because LinkedIn wants to push that topic. So in the side panel of your LinkedIn homepage, there's a bit that says LinkedIn news, and you can go in there and get inspired by that. But there'll be bits in there that I haven't come up with the idea of working from home, for example, but it's being discussed. So I might want to go into that particular news article, screenshot it, and then share it as a post and say, these are my thoughts on working from home. And that's a curated piece of content. So you're taking something from somewhere else and you're adding your opinion to it, and then asking other people for theirs. And that could be like very simple. Like, it could be a Forbes article that you screenshot, it could be a BBC news article that you screenshot. It could be a video that you came across and you share on your platform and say, hey, I don't like this because of this reason, but you're curating it from someone else. You're taking it from someone else. That's a really, really good way of building your personal brand without putting too much kind of thought into it.
Fantastic. I think we're going to have 120 people doing that after this call. LinkedIn will be on fire now after come 12 o'clock with posts. Great. So well, let's get into the Q&A discussion. Amelia, thank you for sharing those wonderful tips. Really, really helpful. And we'll share the slides as well with everyone who attended, so you can go back and refer back to those. We're going to get into our Q&A discussion now, and welcome Natalie, Alistair and Elena to the chat. If you do have questions, again, pop them into the chat or into the Q&A and we will bubble them up. Wonderful. So Alistair, I'd like to come to you first. You posted earlier this week on LinkedIn that social media doesn't come naturally, and I think it resonated. You could say it went viral in a way with a lot of people.
Not by Amelia's standards.
Well, it got a lot of interaction, and a lot of people seem to resonate with it. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, naturally, I'm probably a bit of an introvert. I don't, that kind of thing, standing up in front of other people and saying, hey, everyone, listen to this, isn't something that I like the idea of. And I suppose, it was only really when we had this idea to start a new firm that I realized, actually, we are going to have to tell people about this business. I had this nightmare that we'd set up a new firm and, set up the website and then sit there and wait for the work to come in, and no one would know about it. And so it was that realization that I had to kind of get to know lots of people. And so initially I was thinking of it as that this is a way to actually just to meet people, to get to know more people in that space. So I began connecting with other people who'd done a similar thing, other law firm founders, including David Turney, who I think is on. Hi, David, who were actually really positive and really encouraging and willing to kind of share tips, and that was really nice. And so it was just and then finding people like David and like Alice Stevenson, like Vanessa Chalice, who are running firms and doing a lot on LinkedIn particularly, you kind of begun to realize there's that platform they have and that reach. And I suppose my way into it, because I suppose coming back to the discomfort I felt, I mean, I think a lot of people in law, you go into it and you instinctively, I don't know if anyone ever tells you this, but you just know that it's this kind of quite conservative profession. You're expected to be a certain way. You don't commit things to writing, you don't stick your head above the parapet too much. And so that's just naturally how I think we are. And actually moving away from that and being willing to put yourself out there a bit is quite a big step. But for me, I think the way my progression through was initially, I suppose, finding those people, commenting on other people's, getting into discussions on LinkedIn, because that seems like a less scary step. You comment on other people's content, get involved in those discussions. And then, from that, got to a point where I was thinking, actually, there is something I want to say here. And for us, I mean, we were thinking about the business. At that time, I was still working for my old firm, so I couldn't really say that much about our plans, but we could talk about our values. We could talk about the things that we wanted to change. And that was actually quite good, because it meant that it wasn't like a sales pitch. We were just talking about things and finding things that resonated with other people and getting into discussions. And that kind of in itself just built connections. There were lots of people off the back of that I had chats with and got to know. And then, and that's really, for me, I don't think I've ever thought of it as something as formal as building a brand. I think I have now after Amelia's talk, actually. I think there's some really helpful things there, but it, for me, it wasn't quite as deliberate as that. And I still think, my content is pretty sporadic and a bit all over the place. It's not often about what it is we're doing, but it's kind of just things that I'm interested in.
I think I was just going to say, I think you mentioned in a previous session that it was networking at scale, and you looked at it as like almost a one-to-one. I think it was you that mentioned it.
Yeah, I think it was Amelia's phrase.
Oh.
It's is a great way of looking at it, because that's really how I think it's certainly a way of making it seem less scary. Anyway, you're dealing with individuals, but a lot of individuals at the same time, and that's been helpful for me.
Natalie, I was going to come to you next. You post on a very regular basis, and I think you've mentioned before on a previous session that you set aside that time to do that. Could you talk a little bit more about that and the routine you have around posting content?
Sure. Yeah, in an ideal world, I would really love to do a 9 a.m. post. I actually think I've done one this morning, which is completely random. But that's school run time for me, and real life does get in the way. So I try to post on or around lunch break time where there's peak traffic, and I try to do a little bit early evening when, the majority of normal people that don't run businesses hopefully put the work to bed and they're mucking around on their phone and they can view. My dog has just entered the room, so let's just ignore that. It's interesting. Amelia's come up with some really great additional things that I haven't even thought about, and I have spent quite a lot of time researching how to develop a personal brand, and from various different sources. But some of what she said this morning has been like amazing, and I'll definitely be trying some of those. But I think for me, in terms of posting the content, it's something will just spark an interest in me, and I will have like a feeling that, looking from the client's lens or a potential client's lens, that would catch attention. I think for me, much like on the back of what Alistair said, this is an industry that hasn't in the past really advocated personality or standing out or being individual. We all comply with code of conduct. We all have to the behaviours have to be mirrored by everybody. The core values can still be adhered to. It's just that you are allowed to have a personality. You are allowed to be an individual, And as long as the respect is there and the, citing sources and all of the formalities are in place, there is absolutely nothing wrong with showing the world who you are. It's forms a much better connection, and people end up asking you questions. They feel like they know you. They feel like they can ask you a question, inbox you something randomly. And that's a really successful tool for me personally. And if I don't have the answer, which often, if it's about another area of law that's not what I do, you respond and you can connect those individuals, which again has double the effect.
Fantastic. Thank you, Natalie. Elena, I want to come to you next. And again, in a previous session, we've covered some of personal branding has kind of come up in some of our sessions, including last month's one around hiring. But you mentioned that you've used your brand as a way to compete against those bigger firms who have bigger pockets for marketing. How has that worked out for you? And do you have any tips or any results that come to mind?
Yeah, so for me, when I started my firm, it was just me. It's still just me. So I had to sort of like put myself out there, be the face of my company, and basically hope that people would see me and come to me and instruct me. And I started getting a few hits on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And then it kind of just went from there. I realized that I needed to be at the forefront of my business, of my firm. And that's how the clients would find me, and that's how they would instruct me, because they wanted me to present their case and to be their solicitor.
And is there, tips that you have for things that you've tried? I think Canva was one that you've mentioned, that some tools or even, certain tips that you have.
Canva is brilliant. Like, I did not know about Canva when I started, and I wish that I did, because it's just been a game changer, really, because you can pay for it, but there's actually a free version. So if you're unsure and you're not really sure how, whether you're going to make the most of it, start on the free subscription and then take it from there, and you can create amazing looking posts. It's dead simple to use. Just download it on your phone, create it. You can repurpose all the posts as well onto Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere. Create documents, create carousels to use on Instagram and on LinkedIn. Canva, for me, is probably the only program that I really use, because at the moment I'm still only just creating pictures and content and things like that using Canva.
Okay, Natalie and Alistair, or even Amelia, if there's other tools out there, because we will have a lot of people on the call who are also startup firms looking to get as much out of their budget as possible. So if there's any tips you have there, that would be great to share other tools as well. That would be fantastic, even if you share them in the chat.
I use Boosted, which is a video, very short, snappy video program app, and it has themes, and you can upload your brand colours. You can manipulate the fonts so it can mirror whatever your branding is for the company. I think that's more kind of company brand, but bringing it back to what this is about with personal, you can still use the same colours, but just put your personal twist on it, and then there's the kind of association that you're within that company. Really easy to use and free. Boosted.
There's a handful that I would recommend. Definitely Canva. We have a design team and we use Canva, so Canva is awesome. Content Drips is really good. Content Drips is basically Canva, but for personal branding. So it's specific designs created for people who are trying to build a personal brand as opposed to a company brand. Content Row is really good. Content Row is basically you chuck your copy in there, your copywriting. So for example, the post that I kind of pulled out of Stevenson Law's blog, you paste that into Content Row and it will go, this is really boring. I suggest that you take out these words, and it will help you make your content really snappy, really fun, really short, really engaging. So I'd highly recommend, if anyone's not confident in their copy, that they have a look at Content Row. Kamoa, I think it's called, is also a really good platform, and it basically allows you to upload any footage of any kind, and you select which platform you're going to be sharing it on, and it will automatically resize it to that platform. But more importantly, it follows you around the video. So instead of it just resizing it and then you walk off this way and then there's no person in the video, it actually automatically follows whatever it is that you decide you want it to be following. So if you're walking around giving a speech, a keynote speech, and you want to resize that to share on your Instagram as a reel, there's a high chance that typically it wouldn't catch all of you. So using Camo is really good because it will follow you around the room, and it means that you can get more out of the content, like video content that you already have. So those would be the ones that I would add. Also Grammarly, because I'm shocking at spelling, as you probably realized from my presentation. So Grammarly saves me on the daily. And also when you're posting on LinkedIn, it pulls into LinkedIn. So it'll actually tell you where you've made a mistake directly in the app, which is really good.
Fantastic, some fantastic tips there, and a lot of people asking for confirmation on the names of those. So if you have time to pop them into the chat there, and we'll include them as well in our follow-up email. Lots of questions coming in here. There's a few around content. So I think a lot of people suffer from writer's block, and just wondering if there's more tips we could share around content. So if you could share a little bit more on that, Amelia. I think you posted something from Jonathan Palmer, comments equal content. So even talking through that would be helpful. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, 99% of people don't share content on LinkedIn, but 90% of people don't even comment on LinkedIn. They just scroll. So people really miss an opportunity to, as Alistair was saying, and to your point earlier, Geraldine, LinkedIn is networking at scale. So when you go into people's comment section of their posts, you can actually network with people that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. So the way that you can do this practically is you go and follow a bunch of influencers that are influential in your customer space. So for example, if you're trying to get into tech founders, who are the influential people in tech that you could be following, and then you bookmark their activity page. So what I mean by bookmark is you go into their activity page where all their posts are, and you bookmark that in your Chrome, in your Safari, in your whatever it is, so that it's really quick to access. Also means that you're going to their activity page and not their profile page every day, because when you go on their profile page every day, it kind of looks a little bit stalkery. So if you go on their activity page, it's really helpful. And then you can go into there every single day and see, or every couple of days, or whenever you have time, go and see what their latest post is, and then go and add value to their most recent post. If they're sharing something, for example, I've got a client who works in tech, and he works in the freelancer ecosystem. He might want to go and comment on someone who's talking about working from home and remote work, and add some insight and add some of his opinion to that topic. And what happens if you continually do that over a period of time, all the people that are seeing and engaging with the influencers' content start to see your name at the top of that list of comments, and then will start coming in and replying to you, and ultimately come and follow you. So it's a really, really good way of kind of getting access to networks that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. And the second part of that is, if you do leave a comment on someone's post and you get a good response from it, i.e. people are liking it, they're replying, that you've created a discussion in the comment section, you can repurpose that as a post. One of my best performing posts ever, like top 3 ever, got 1.5 million views, was a comment I left on someone else's post. Literally copy and paste, because it got such a good reaction as a comment. I was like, well, not wasting that. Go and put it as a post the next day, and it went completely viral. So get the most mileage out of the time that you're spending on the platform as humanly possible, because no one has time to spend hours and hours online. You want to get as much impact in those 10 to 15 minutes that you've got spare each day. So I would highly recommend repurposing as much of your comments as humanly possible. Comments are content.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amelia. A question here then on how you're doing all of this. How do you know if what you're doing is right and working? I think you had mentioned that it's a long game, but even at that, how do you know if it's working? And have you got tips on things to look at, things to look out for people to know if what they're doing is actually working?
Want me to answer that? And then
yes, please.
So there's a few layers to this. There's your vanity metrics, right, which are your followers. Brilliant, you're getting more followers, fantastic. There are your likes and your engagement, which is a very specific formula which adds up your impressions, your likes and your comments, and divides them by a specific number. You could also look at the views that your content is getting. That's all really fun stuff, but that's not going to pay the bills, right? That the number of views that you get on your content is not going to pay the bills. But what that does is, when you're consistently pushing content out that's getting viewed by lots of people, that then increases your profile views, right? And profile views is really important. Now, a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on their profile views because they think it's just kind of a bit of a vanity metric. There is a direct correlation between the number of profile views you get and the number of inbound leads that you get. So the more profile views that you have, the more likely you have to get inbound leads. So if you're posting consistently and you're getting high views on your content, you're engaging with other people's stuff, you're doing all these activities to get attention. That's going to bring people to your profile, probably going to convert them into a follower, and then ultimately a lead at some point. So I would focus directly on the profile views. Are you getting an increase in that? Is it decreasing? It might be decreasing, but the graph that you get on the LinkedIn page, you really have to look at that data, because it only gives you the data for 30-day period, and it will tell you you've decreased by 40% last week, which isn't that helpful in isolation, because if you went viral last week, of course you're going to have decreased this week, even if you still did very well. So you just have to kind of stay on top of like your profile views, basically. That's what I'll follow on. And then ultimately it's the leads. That's how you know it's working, when you start getting leads from people, even if they're not quite right, but they're coming to you. That's a really good sign that the tap's about to come on and you're going to get lots of stuff coming in. And it normally takes about 6 months to see any kind of results like that.
Okay. Elena, Alistair, or Natalie, have you experience of tracking some of the content that you're putting out there, the branding stuff that you're putting out there, and it performing or not performing even?
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, I kept getting like the same comment from one of my clients. And as a personal injury solicitor, I hear this probably from all my clients. And they say this one sentence to me and it drives me crazy. And they say, I'm not normally the type to make a claim. I'm like, right, what? Like, I understand what they're saying, but, you know, then we go into a whole conversation about, you know, claims and things like that. And so I made that into content, and I said, right, I'm going to make something visually where people can see the type of clients that I've acted for. They've included like footballers, company directors, influencers, Instagram models, you name it. I've probably had them as a client. So I made like a carousel of that, and I had about 5 or 6 clients off the back of that one post. So to me, that was like a bit of tracking that I did, just off that one bit of content on one post.
Wow. Fantastic. That's a really great use case. I'm just looking through some of we're getting a lot of questions coming in on chat. So what I might do is just fire through some. It might seem a little bit like we're jumping from one to the other, but some specific questions are coming in. So I'd like to answer some of them. Elena, a question here from Shannon. What methods can you use to ensure your Insta posts reach your potential clients?
So on Instagram, not LinkedIn. Yeah. So on Instagram, hashtags are really good. So if you're in personal injury, then you would hashtag maybe personal injury or road accident or claims management. So use the hashtags, and there is an app, I'm not quite sure what the name is, but it can show you what really popular hashtags are in your area. So you can sort of find out what they are and use them. So that's a good way. Having an open profile, you wouldn't believe how many people who are solicitors or who try and maybe grow a personal brand actually have closed profiles. So when you can't even reach them. So having an open profile, posting regularly on Instagram works really well. Sharing stories on it, but on Instagram, I think hashtags will probably help you get across to maybe the right type of audience. With Instagram, you can't, like, I struggle to really measure Instagram because I will just get a load of like inbound messages from clients saying, I've had an accident, how have you found me? But it might go back to like a post that I did and I've put the hashtag in as accident or insurance claim or compensation, or even Manchester, things like that. Like, because I'm based in Manchester, I will hashtag Manchester. And sometimes it might just be in front of the right type of people that are looking for that type of service.
Yeah, sometimes it's as simple as asking where did you hear, where did you, or even putting it in your post, to use this, referral mention or something along those lines, and you can track that. Question here from David for Amelia: would you recommend using creator mode on LinkedIn?
Yes, I would. I wouldn't recommend it though if you've only got like 200 followers, because that's going to have a negative impact, I believe. There's a big part of the opportunities that creator mode has is basically for social proof, right? Because your followers are right at the top of your page. So as soon as people come on your page, they go, oh, this person's got 5,000 followers. They must kind of know what they're talking about. So if I were you, if you're someone who hasn't quite got to that point yet, I wouldn't turn it on just yet. I would keep that in the bag for a little bit later. And I would change your connect button to a follow button. So what that means is your connect option is still there, but it just means that when you go on, someone goes on your profile, instead of it being connect, it says follow. So you start amassing followers as opposed to connections, which does one of two things. Number one, you get followers much quicker because it's a lot easier to hit a button than it is to send a connection request. But the second part of that is you then get lots of followers without having to have all these connection stuff in your feed and be connected to all these people that aren't relevant to you. So connect button to a follow button is very, very helpful. Super simple to do. You just go into your settings, go all the way down to, I think it says visibility, and then scroll all the way down. It says toggle yes or no, make follow button primary. And you say yes, and then it does. It's very easy.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amelia. And a slightly kind of related question. Should folks accept connections from people in foreign countries with random occupations not really linked to them? Is it quality over quantity or quantity over quality that works?
It's both. Like it's not or, it's, but you need quality and quantity. If you want to build influence, you have to think that it's a networking event, right? So in a networking event, I'm not going to go, well, you can't come to my stand because you don't look like the type of customer that I'd want to be interested in. You're going to have that conversation because they might know someone, for example. So I've got people in my network that are like junior candidates and marketing who are never probably going to be a client of mine, but they might work for a company that might become a client of mine. And if they're engaging with my content and that brings that into their CEO's feed, I've now reached someone that I wouldn't otherwise reach. So top tip, connect with everyone. If they spam you, as soon as you connect with them, you remove them as a connection. Very, very simple. And turn your follow button on so you start amass followers as opposed to connections. But yeah, absolutely connect with everyone would be my advice.
Fantastic. Thank you. Really practical tips there. Going to come to Natalie now at our next question. We've only got a few minutes left, so trying to ramp through the questions, but something that's come up quite a lot is there's a lot of critics out there, a lot of trolls, a lot of people in the long grass, having negative comments. How do you deal with those? And yeah, could you talk a little bit more about that? Maybe some experience you might have had. Oh, you're muted at the moment. There you go.
Hi. Sure. Yeah. I have experienced some negative comments, and strangely enough, I was made aware of it. You'll all be Googling now, won't you? I was made aware of it by a comment from a really lovely acquaintance that I'd met virtually that I didn't know but was in the industry, and she sent a really lovely text saying, "Don't read the comments that are on blah 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 blah," and it was rectified and removed, but it was basically commenting on my background because I didn't go through a generic solicitor route with the LPC and the LLB, which it can be an extremely snobby industry at times. People, in my view, don't value other skill sets from other industries, and they just, and that does need to change, and it is changing, I'm pleased to say. But no, some keyboard warriors got a bit uppity about me doing well in an article, and decided to comment and be very negative. It affected me quite a lot at the time. If it was to happen now, I would handle it in a very different way. I actually wouldn't handle it, because what I'd be doing is saying, thanks very much for sharing and commenting on something with my name in, because you've increased my visibility. So yeah, stuff them, I think, would be the reaction now. But remain dignified at all times. We are in an industry where dignity is really important. But I think the thing is, just when it comes to ethics and opinions and things, just make sure that you're very clean and very concise with what you're saying, and don't open yourself up to some conversations that could offend individuals. It's okay to have opinions, but certain opinions don't belong on LinkedIn, in my view.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. That's thank you, and thank you for sharing your experience there. I know there's many others that have had a similar type of experience, and yeah, it's definitely, it's a tough one. So I'm going to now do a quick round the room because we've got only 2 minutes left. So with our final question, and thank you to everyone for all your questions that are coming in. I hope we can move the conversation to our social media platforms and have some more conversation there. But final question around the room, what one tip do you have for attendees on the call when it comes to building a successful brand? Try to keep it to one. Alistair, I'll come to you first.
I would say think about what people want to read. So if you're giving an update about something, if you can make that funny or interesting or inspiring, because it's people scrolling through on their coffee break, that they will like and share it and still see the bit of valuable content that actually is the message you want to put out there. That's the thing that I would say was my tip.
Thank you, Alistair. Ellen, I'll come to you next.
I would say follow the people that inspire you. Follow them because they'll inspire you. You'll get inspiration from that, and you think, you know what? I feel empowered to do this. That's exactly how I started off, and that's exactly what I'm continuing to do at the moment.
You had mentioned, I think there was one person in particular that you kind of follow and inspires you a lot.
Yeah, we're out of time, but no, there's amazing like legal sort of almost influencers, creators out there for personal injury. If anybody is in that area, there's a chap called Ali Awad. He's in America. He's just reached 1 million followers on Instagram, and he's a personal injury solicitor. So it can be exciting. It can be really interesting. Yeah, following him has been a game changer to me because it's simple things, but they really do work.
Thank you, Ellen. And Natalie, I'll come to you next on that question.
I'll just be brief then. I think for me, it's getting the balance of being professional and being human at the same time. It's fine to show a bit of vulnerability. It allows you to relate to people that are reading your content, but strength and professionalism is also really key because people are trusting you with some really sensitive situations. So getting the balance right will get a really good 360 of people coming into you.
Thank you, Natalie. And finally, Amelia, please, if you could answer that question too.
Start and don't stomp. Like, that's it. Done is always better than perfect. Don't overthink it. Just get your stuff out there, walk away from your computer and do it all again the next day. People spend a lot of time overthinking, should they be personal? Should they be business? Is this funny? Is it? I love these tips that everyone's giving, but don't overthink it, because overthinking it will stop you from doing it. And that's the exact opposite that we want you to do. So just start and don't stop.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amelia. Just bear with me for one moment. I am going to just let you know about our next event that's happening. So our next Making Up a Law Firm event takes place next month on the 20th of October. And this one will be, it's a nice add-on to what we've just been discussing. It's all about how to use smart business development to sell more legal services and increase your law firm's revenue. And we'll be joined by Scott Simmons, Director of Legal Balance Limited. And Scott is a toolbox for turning lawyers into rainmakers, so making money rain. And Eleanor and Natalie will be rejoining us along with Kim Cross from Vine Law, and Alistair gets to sit back and take a well-deserved break from our webinars for next month. And my colleague Erica will share the link for registering in the Zoom chat, so please do join us for that. As always, they're completely free and recorded. And just wanted to also mention, also happening next month is our flagship conference, the Clio Cloud Conference. This year's event is 26th to 29th of October, entirely virtual. I'll quickly run through this, but just wanted to mention that one of our keynotes is Scott Stratton, so best-selling author, award-winning speaker, and expert in social media marketing. So Scott will definitely be of interest to those who enjoyed today's session. Really an expert in all things viral, social, authentic marketing. And we've also got two more keynote speakers who are absolutely fantastic. So Ariana Huffington, Thrive Global founder and CEO and founder of the Huffington Post, and Ian Emanuel. Ian is a survivor of excessive child punishment, author and criminal justice reform advocate. So we've fantastic keynote speakers. And I'm probably even more excited for our entertainment to keep people engaged and energized, from Grammy award-winning musicians to celebrity magicians. Aloe Black, who you may know from the song I Need a Dollar, Wake Me Up with Avicii, Justin Willman, Netflix series Magic for Humans, Leanne Rimes, 2 times Grammy Award winner, and Big Boy, hip hop legend and member of Outkast. So some fantastic entertainment to join all the keynotes, product sessions around Clio, legal tech contests, roundtables, and just a global event you will not want to miss within the legal industry. Thousands of attendees worldwide. So please do join us if you can. And with that, I would like to thank our speakers, our keynote speakers for today, and our entertainment as well. Alistair, Amelia, Elena, and Natalie, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all your thoughts and tips around personal branding and marketing. Lots covered, I think lots more to cover around it. So I hope we can continue the conversation, probably on LinkedIn. And thank you to everyone for joining us.